Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call. Today is April 2nd, an historic date. We'll get into that in a bit of time here. This is not going to be a very long call today, although I do have a lot of information, largely because we're getting blown up over here with all manner of requests. A lot of people are nervous that either their trust isn't fully enforced or they don't completely understand certain aspects of what we've done. They have questions about exchanging and all of that. So, first and foremost, we have to assist those individuals, but we're in a very, very good place. And so I'd like to go ahead and get started with the call. Before I do, I want to mention the fact that for those of you that have been kind enough to listen for some time, you are aware of the fact that the reason I'm with Trusts Unlimited is because I was involved with the reinstitution of the Kuwaiti dinar in the early 90s. And there is one similarity here, and it's this. About 3 weeks before the Kuwaiti dinar reinstituted, the CBI of Kuwait said that they expected the reinstitution to occur in about a year. Now, there's no way that the CBI of Kuwait knowingly made such an error. So the only explanation for why they would say that the reinstitution was going to wait another year when in fact it was about to happen was because they did not want to give the speculators a date and a rate because it would result in extreme volatility. There was volatility anyway, but it would have been a lot worse. All I'm saying is that where the Iraqi dinar is concerned, we're not going to get a date and a rate, and it's entirely possible that they have a date and a rate in mind, which is nothing close to what they're stating. Everything I look at says that we're weeks, perhaps a couple of months out, but you never know. They could be doing the switcheroo on us, and again, because of the issue of speculators, and of course, it's more of an issue now than it was, 30 years ago. So this is where we find ourselves. But right now in Iraq, we're involved in the implementation of what's called the Azraflak campaign. This involves a lot of things going on simultaneously. The country is digitizing, moving to electronic payment system. They're implementing something called the TIR, which is the Global Customs Transit System, which is the facilitation of cross-border payments. They're ending the parallel market. They're getting ready to release the new category small notes. And frankly, in my opinion, the country's been operating with an undisclosed new rate for months, which is the only way to explain the consummation of all of their international contracts and currency swaps. But when you look at this from 30,000 feet, what we see is that Iraq has achieved security and stability. This is a prerequisite for the reinstitution or evaluation of their currency. This is what Shabibi has wanted all along, and basically what I think they're doing is they're utilizing Shabibi's plan. Iraq is also pumping oil through something called the ITP, which is the Iraqi-Turkish pipeline. The United States is assisting Iraq to finalize oil deals with international oil companies, dealing with the exploration, extraction, and refinement of oil in Iraq. So this is where we are. There's no need to prolong the call, although we do need to touch on what's going on in the United States, because the United States and Donald Trump are a catalyst for what's going on in Iraq. And President Donald Trump is also the catalyst for what he likes to refer to as the new golden age. And I've discussed this in the past. I'm going to just briefly mention it. The new golden age is an allusion to the first golden age, a period of roughly between 1880 and 1910, also referred to as the Gilded Age. It's when the United States really became a very wealthy country, and it was accomplished in the same manner that Donald Trump is approaching. That is, it was accomplished externally through tariffs, not internally through a federal income tax. But let's go back a little bit in history and see how we got ourselves in this situation. We start with the presidency of Woodrow Wilson. He was president from 1913 to 1921. He was, in my opinion, the worst president in American history. He was the president that established the Federal Reserve, the third and final central bank within the United States. It's a private corporation. It's not federal, and there is no reserve. They simply create a currency out of nothing and charge us interest in order to utilize that currency for the purchase of goods and services. In other words, in my opinion, it's a criminal enterprise. It's a money laundering system. He also established the federal income tax, which of course was necessary to pay the interest on the fictitious money created by the Federal Reserve. Now, toward the end of his term as president, Woodrow Wilson suffered a stroke, and as a result, his wife Edith basically ran the country. So we went from bad to worse. There was actually a movie that was loosely based on this. The movie was called Dave. It starred Kevin Kline and Sigourney Weaver, and it was basically a president who had suffered a massive stroke, and for political reasons, they decided that his wife was going to run the country that his wife was going to remain silent about his condition while a handful of his henchmen ran the country. Well, fast forward to the presidency of Joe Biden. It should be obvious to everyone by now that Joe Biden is not running the country because Joe Biden is not intellectually capable of running the country. I would argue that he wasn't intellectually capable before the senility manifested itself, but be that as it may, others have been running the country. There have been all kinds of stories about how this was done. The last few cabinet meetings were basically run by Jill, his wife, so there you are, history repeats itself. Now, what we learned from the Biden administration was that the country, for some reason, needed open borders with anywhere from 12 to 15,000 unvetted individuals coming into the country, spending over the top, which created inflation, and a substantial amount of crime. Now, why would someone intentionally do this? Well, there's actually an answer to that. And it's something called the Cloward and Piven strategy. I suggest you look it up. Again, it's the Cloward and Piven strategy. The thinking was that in order to completely globalize governance, the United States was a problem. It was a superpower, and it was a fly in the ointment. They were not going to be able to truly have a global system with a sovereign United States. So the Cloward and Piven strategy said that what you needed to do was you needed to open the borders, you needed to create internal chaos, and you needed to allow all of these unvetted individuals into the country in order to bankrupt it. And that's pretty much what they've attempted over the last few years. I've mentioned this as well. Gibbons wrote a book a long time ago called The Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire. And he ascribed the loss of the Roman Empire to three things: open borders, confiscatory taxation, and moral decay. So they wrote the script, and we've been living it for the last 4 years. But then something happened. Then Donald Trump was reelected as President of the United States. And right out of the barrel, he said we're going to enter a new golden age. Now, a new golden age means that there was a previous golden age. And I've mentioned this as well. This was a period of time between 1880 and 1910 where the United States gained so much of their wealth and became a superpower. Again, it referred to loosely as the Gilded Age. And what was his objective? What is Donald Trump's objective? Well, if you're paying close attention to what he's doing, Donald Trump wants to end the Federal Reserve and go back to Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution, creating an interest-free people's money. To that end, we no longer need a federal income tax to fund the payment of interest to a Federal Reserve that no longer exists. And in order to end the federal income tax, he needed to expose the fraud, waste, and abuse in the federal government. Enter Elon Musk auditing federal expenditures. Now, of course, Donald Trump and Elon Musk are now enemy number 1 and 2 to the left, because this jeopardizes internally their laundering system and externally the establishment of their one world globalist governance, whatever that means. But it also means that we return to a system of tariffs, meaning that we would fund the federal government externally rather than internally through a tax. As a matter of fact, yesterday, one of the aides to Donald Trump, for some reason her name escapes me right now, said that April 2nd, which is today, is Liberation Day. The establishment of reciprocal tariffs and the elimination of the global cabal, which was designed to hollow out the United States. So this is where we find ourselves. Now, for those of us that have purchased currencies, Iraqi dinar, Vietnamese dong, and some of the other currencies, what we've done is we've recognized that we're moving away from the fiat system, meaning the value of currencies are based on the full faith and credit of given governments and their ability to sustain the value of their currencies. Now, that's impossible if the currencies are not backed by commodities or where they continue to print money, meaning that the money supply continues to increase far in extent and beyond their ability to produce goods and services. That creates inflation. That's the situation that we found ourselves in. So now that Donald Trump is back in office, we're going to be moving back to sound money. But those of us that have dinar and other currencies have acquired these currencies in an entirely Western central bank fiat system, and we are going to exchange them for commodity-backed values. So purchasing these currencies and acquiring this wealth is phase one. From the standpoint of Trusts Unlimited, protecting those currencies, protecting that wealth for yourself and your children is phase two. The only way to guarantee that you can retain and eventually pass this wealth on to family is through the establishment of a package of irrevocable trusts. LLCs won't do it. Sub-S corporations won't do it. Limited family partnerships won't do it. Even offshore trusts won't do it. But a package of asset protection trusts will. The benefits are very simple. They are these. By establishing our package, you will preserve your privacy and your anonymity, meaning everything in the trust is sealed. And absent your losing civil litigation case, no one will know what you possess. This package will allow you to avoid IRS scrutiny because the activities occur within the trust. This package will allow you not only pre-RV gifting, which of course any individual can do without a trust, but with the establishment of this trust, you'll be able to gift currencies to family and friends, avoid the federal gift tax, and have control of the post-RV proceeds. And there are situations, and we've had many contact us and say, I would love to gift currencies, but either this individual is utterly incapable of managing the money, or I don't know how long I'm going to live, and I want some mechanism in place to help manage the money for their benefit. This can be done through the trust. The trust will also allow you to avoid the cost, delay, and exposure of probate and the federal estate tax. This means that no one will know what your estate is worth. No one will know who it was transferred to and how much they each inherited, and that the estate will avoid the federal estate tax, which can be as much as 55% of the value of your estate. This package also provides asset protection benefits both pre- and post-RV. Pre-RV, this trust will allow you to circumvent something called the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. Very simply, it means this. Once you transfer, let's say you had 10 million dinar that you purchased for $10,000. You transfer the currencies to the trust, and let's say the dinar revalues for $1. So now you have 10 million in your trust. Can you be sued personally for the 10 million? No. Why? Because the currencies were only worth 10,000 when you transferred them out of the title to this trust. Post-RV, there's a benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop loss. This protects you from future bad acts after you've acquired this wealth. Protection is accomplished through something called segregation of assets, meaning you place each asset, home, car, boat, etc., in a separate subtrust, meaning that if any of those assets ever got involved in litigation, it would only be that asset, because the other assets are in separate subtrusts, which under the law are separate legal entities not involved in the litigation in question. So this is protection both pre- and post-RV that can only be accomplished through the establishment of a package of asset protection trusts. So for those of us that have dinar and other currencies, this is phase 2. Phase 1 is acquiring the currencies and acquiring the wealth. Phase 2 is protecting that wealth for yourself and your family through the establishment of a trust. I've been doing trust work for over 40 years. I've worked with a lot of people, many of them, they're household names, and they all have one thing in common. They've established very similar trusts to this to protect their wealth. The best example I can give you is the Kennedy family. We know through news, through articles, through books that have been written, everything about the Kennedy family, all of the picadillos, all of the things that have gone on in their family. But someone could win a Pulitzer Prize if they could actually do an expose on the wealth of the Kennedy family. But it can't be done. Why? Because all of their wealth are involved in these trusts that the senior Kennedy, Joseph, established 100 years ago, and that information is simply not available to the general public. And you would enjoy the same protection by establishing this trust. Now, if these things are of interest to you, I suggest you contact us to get our initial no-obligation package. It does have everything you need if you wish to proceed with the establishment of your trust, but you're under no obligation to do so. But contact us. We'll send you the initial package. You can review the package. Contact us if you have any questions. We're happy to assist you. Again, if you want to proceed, then you certainly can do so. And again, everything you need is in the package. You can contact us by email or by phone. Our email address is trusts with an S, unlimited LLC @gmail.com. That's trusts with an S, unlimited LLC @gmail.com. And our phone service is 307-274-4122. That's 307-274-4122. Contact us by email or phone. We'll get our trust package out to you as quickly as possible. We have additional paralegals to assist us because time is short. So this is all that I wanted to discuss for today. Again, we're in a very, very good place. But there are two things going on here. There are those of us that have currencies. Many of us have had currencies for quite some time that are about to be rewarded for our patience. But the other thing is what's going on in this country historically. Because there is a transformation going on in this country. There is a new wealth that's being returned to this country. The last nearly 100 years of hollowing out the United States by other countries is coming to an end. The wealth is coming back to this country. One of the ways it's coming back is through Basel compliance and valuing currencies based on the known natural resources of given countries. And those of us that have currencies are going to reap a superb return on our time and investment. And the establishment of this trust is what you're going to need to ensure that no one can take this from you, and that it'll be there for your children and your grandchildren for years to come. So thanks so much for listening to the call. I apologize for the shortness of the call and that there's no Q&A, but we're just being inundated with requests here, and we've got to take care of that first and foremost. Our next call will be scheduled for next Wednesday. Certainly, if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we'll try to get out an emergency email and schedule an emergency conference call. But failing that, we'll be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great week, everyone, and keep your fingers crossed, because we've come down now to weeks and even days for this event to occur. Take care and God bless.